Hello? 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 This is the Vancouver
Commercial
Real Estate Podcast.
And welcome back to the Vancouver Commercial Real Estate Podcast. I'm Cory Wright, and on today's program, we have Jerry Shi, a lawyer from Redpoint Law. And today we're discussing, which I think is a very interesting topic, the potential impact of AI on the law industry. And what prompted our call with Jerry was we've seen on the broker side of the transactions where a lot more people are using AI to review offers and even leases and potentially not getting the correct information or things that are irrelevant because ChatGPT is having a tough time distinguishing what is relevant in regards to it. And there are certain types of laws apply to different provinces. So we wanted to reach out. We wanted to have Jerry join us to kind of unpack what they're seeing, good and bad. What does this look like in the future? And potentially any fun stories that he have to share. So without further ado, let's get to our episode today with Jerry Shi, lawyer, Redpoint Law.
This podcast is presented by Impact Commercial.
Impact Commercial, John, Alan, the team over there are fantastic. They've all been on the show.
They have, yeah.
Friends of the show.
Great guys.
Wealth of experience. They can help with all your commercial financing needs.
Whether it's owner-occupiers, land development funds, commercial investments, or multifamily, these guys got you covered.
And they recently obtained their CMHC correspondent lender status.
So for all your commercial lending needs, visit them at impactcommercial.ca.
That's impactcommercial.ca.
Xanterra has done it again. Recently named Multifamily Home Builder of the Year by the Home Builders Association of Vancouver and the Canadian Home Builders Association of BC. Xanterra continues to move forward on new projects. And their latest, Butte, a new condo community in West Clayton, is now selling. With construction already underway, buyers can purchase with confidence, knowing that the project is moving forward.
Butte offers 1, 2, and 3-bedroom condos located just 3 blocks to the future SkyTrain Atom. These condos come with tons of inclusions like gas ranges, air conditioning, and designer-selected finishes. Residents will have access to the rooftop patio, fitness center, on-site daycare, co-working space, games room, and tons of outdoor space with 3 playgrounds. Estimated completion is summer 2028.
The best deals are happening now. Visit Xanterra's home store in South Surrey to get all the details or check out the floor plans at buttecondos.ca. That's BUTE condos.ca.
Today, I'm joined by Jerry Shi, lawyer at Redpoint Law. Jerry, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Cory. Happy to be here.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And I'm really excited for this episode because I know I'll get into it in a second here, all about AI and the impact that may be having on the law industry. I can sort of provide some insight of what we see on the commercial real estate side with regards to leases and offers. But before we get into that, Jerry, can you tell us more about yourself and how you ended up at Redpoint Law?
Sure. So I graduated out of Allard Law School at the University of British Columbia a couple of years ago. I joined Redpoint Law about 4 years ago. We have a great practice here, doing lots of commercial real estate, residential real estate, lending, and transactions. And so we're always looking for more opportunities to learn about developments in the law, in AI, keep on the front and advise our clients.
Well, Jerry, today's episode, as I said at the start of the program, I'm excited for, and I'm excited to get your take on it because obviously things like AI are coming into the business world from all facets, maybe faster than some people want. And I know law is something that's probably impacted similar to commercial real estate. And what kind of prompted this episode was we've seen some challenges on the AI side. You've got Claude, you've got ChatGPT, and I'm sure there's other ones that are coming, where clients are literally taking either leases and not getting reviewed by lawyers, or even taking offers, loading them up into AI programs and asking for advice. And a lot of times we find comes back is maybe not the best advice pertaining to their situation. So this is what prompted the program. I'd love to get your take on what you guys see positively, negatively, what these impacts might be. I'm going to give you a big runway here to kind of just open up the conversation, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. I mean, we're seeing it as well. We see emails or perhaps, client drafted documents that, bear the mark, right?
Yeah.
And we review them. And oftentimes, on the surface, I think they provide, a decent level of advice sometimes. But the big problem is they don't often distinguish by jurisdiction.
Yes.
So obviously with real estate law, especially, it's very different from province to province. And it's very different from Canada and the US. That's a big concern, because if you don't turn your mind to that, and lawyers, we have to turn our minds to that, you can run up into a lot of issues when a dispute arises or there's interpretations issues with a contractor drafting, especially commercial leases or some of these larger offers where there could be millions of dollars at stake here.
Well, one thing that we've found, and again, at the start of the program, this is kind of what led to our episode here, is clients, whether they're taking offers and loading them up into AI programs and coming back with information that's incorrect and kind of almost hanging their hat on it. And one situation that we had was a client came back to us and said that $40 a TI is what they have to get. And I believe the landlord in this transaction here had kind of offered around 20, we'll say, just for argument's sake.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no precedence of anything being $40 a foot. And the deal ended up not going anywhere. And I think we ended up getting up to 25, which to my knowledge was probably one of the higher sides in that building, with some really good rates. It didn't really bake a lot of the TI into it. And after the deal had died, the client came back to us months later, and I think they kind of realized they probably lost a really good location in retail. And I asked them, where did you get this $40 from? And they literally told me they asked ChatGPT what it should be. And ChatGPT said $40 a foot, and they hung their hat on that. Unfortunately, losing a really good retail location in this particular market that I think they realized later. Are you guys seeing similar type situations where clients are either asking ChatGPT questions and coming back to you with unrealistic answers that they just can't pivot off of?
So on occasion, I have had that. I have had clients put contracts or agreements into there and ask for an interpretation that's, to my mind, incorrect, fairly obviously so. But their clients may be insistent that they have the correct view of things. And when pushed, or when you start looking at their emails explaining it, it becomes a bit obvious that it's AI generated. Part of the problem is, like I mentioned, AI, I think, fails to correctly distinguish properly between jurisdictions and practices between jurisdictions. That's substantive law, but as well as market trends, right? In your example, where they were insisting on $40 per square foot worth of TI. I mean, that may be true somewhere in North America, but certainly not in the building that you're offering for lease.
Correct. Yeah. And that was one thing. And we had another client similar to that, where the client just didn't really know any better. And the client happened to be on the landlord side of things. And I don't necessarily think they had a lot of commercial real estate. This was a single strata lot where the lease came back that they gave us, or sorry, the offer that we had sent them on behalf of the tenant came back, and they added HST. And we kept trying to explain to the client, there's no HST here in BC, but he would not remove it because the AI program added it, and he was adamant that it had to stay. Now, that deal ended up going forward, but that's an example of incorrect information that almost could have cost that landlord a really, really good tenant. Thank God it didn't.
Mm-hmm. It's not just a really good tenant, because if they had gone ahead and the tenant had known better, I mean, the lease would simply be faulty. The landlord would have all sorts of tax issues when they're collecting purportedly HST and BC.
Correct.
It's a problem. And again, it goes to the fact, I think AI, I don't know exactly how it works. Smarter people than me, I suppose, are working on it. But there's different sources of information on the web. And, BC, we're a smaller jurisdiction at the end of the day. And so there's a lot more information about the world outside BC than there is here. And AI can certainly misinterpret that. And HST, I mean, that's common in Ontario and in the East, not here, certainly.
what do you feel the positive impacts AI might make on the law industry moving forward?
Oh, I think it's going to be a great boon for the law industry, for clients especially. It'll be a tough transition perhaps for lawyers and law firms, but there's real cost savings and real efficiencies here in the future with AI. It can be an assistant to lawyers, assist with drafting, assist with conveyancing documents. At the end of the day, what it'll mean for clients is better drafted documents for lower costs, lower transaction costs. Everyone likes that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, do you foresee any what type of negative? I know it feels like this has been geared to a very negative kind of conversation so far. What type of negative impacts do you see? Maybe not necessarily from clients' perspective, but just from maybe a lawyer to lawyer or the law industry as a whole.
Well, in the early days, this year, last year, it's a pretty quick advancing industry. One thing that's tripped up a couple lawyers around the world, you hear in the news occasionally, is they've used AI to draft either documents or court submissions that hallucinated case law. Put case law that doesn't exist and put it out there as real and existing. That's obviously a problem. I think people are more aware of that now. The future, obviously work has to be checked. You have to verify against sources. So that can be a tool. They can't replace lawyers, at least not at the moment.
Now, here's another situation, and again, I said I feel like it's all negative situations. We had a deal that almost went off the rails, and we had to kind of come back on the landlord side to put it together. But tenants had taken the lease to their lawyer, and their lawyer had provided feedback and comments on the lease, as well as they had generated a letter breaking down what changes they had made and why they had made those changes. And after seeing it, we were the landlord of the transaction. After seeing the comments in the lease and the letter from the lawyer, I would be 99.99% confident this lawyer literally had loaded up the offer, had loaded up the lease, and came back with AI generated comments. And where that came from, the look of the letter looked carbon copied to ChatGPT's breakdown of stuff, but also in the lease itself, the corporation was the tenant. The indemnifiers were to be the individuals, but the AI generated the indemnity agreement with the corporate tenant indemnifying themselves to their own lease. Now, I'm not going to say what law firm this was by any stretch, but when I went through and I looked at the comments and the stuff that it was telling to insert that was not in the offer, and if a lawyer populated it from reading the offer, they probably would have populated a couple sections correctly, but instead AI had dropped in a numerical question type of thing, that it seemed like that. And I felt in that situation, and these poor tenants said, well, this is what our lawyers said we have to do, of which some of the comments that they were made did not pertain to the transaction at all. The deal almost died and had to get revived because the clients were hanging their hat on this lawyer's comments, which the lawyer's comments, in my opinion, clearly were AI generated and probably not reviewed. Is that something that you guys are seeing on the law side right now, where maybe law firms or lawyers are using AI to review documents and then maybe potentially not reviewing them one more time with their own eyes before putting them forward, and then the wrong information is out there?
I think it certainly exists in the industry here in BC and the Lower Mainland. We don't come across it very often. I think it speaks to the fact that a lot of lawyers haven't taken the time to ensure that they're keeping up on both the law, but also on developments on AI before using it, right? It speaks to the fact that they're not being careful in using it. And that goes on to something else that I wanted to bring up. Lawyers using AI, we have to be very cautious about it, because these are products being provided by technology companies. And unless you can reach a pretty specific type of agreement with them, you may be violating client confidentiality every time you upload an agreement onto, say, ChatGPT. Because to my knowledge, their privacy expectations are that anything you give them, they can then use to further develop their program, right? And that's a real hazard, I think, for clients. unaware that their information is just going out into the web uncontrolled.
Interesting. I never thought of that point, but now that you make it, and to my comment about, I thought this lawyer had generated their comments from AI, that information now, both from the client side, the landlord side, and the offer itself, that information now would exist within that Chat GPT world.
Mm-hmm. It's out there now, right? And they often say, what's out there, you can't get back.
Interesting. Now, what happens in that circumstance? Let's say hypothetically, it's discovered that that information did get out there and did get back into the client's hands. The finding their information now is out in the dark web or the web itself. What type of ramifications would follow in something like that from a law perspective?
From a law perspective, one, I think the lawyer here is committed misconduct, right? Because under our law society rules and code, we have to be very careful in stewarding the client's data. Clients trust us with a lot of information on the expectation that we keep it confidential and that all of these communications are privileged and won't be put against them in the court of law if there's a dispute in the future. That's very key, because when a lawyer sends out a document out into the public, privilege is waived. And so it becomes possible, I haven't seen any case law on this yet, but it's possible that this could be used against them in the court of law. And it's a concerning prospect. Down in the States, there have been rulings where when clients themselves use AI to seek legal advice through ChatGPT or these other programs, subsequently prosecutors or other parties have subpoenaed those search records and used it against them in courts of law. Now,
interesting.
There was a ruling in New York from this year where that succeeded in the criminal trial, and there's no privilege. Unlike if you consult with a lawyer for legal advice, prosecutors or other parties can't get at that communication or knowledge and use it against you.
Interesting. That's an interesting point. I never thought of that. Well, I know, like I said, we see it on the transactional side where I don't want to say I feel like small business clients might use this as an opportunity to not have to use a lawyer, which we always recommend when you're doing a transaction that involves a lease or anything to that respect. Like, you have to put these leases in front of lawyers to get their comments and feedback. You're doing yourself a disservice by not. Is clients are maybe using ChatGPT as their lawyer and loading up the lease, coming back with comments that a lot of times we feel are probably unwarranted comments, but because their lawyer, in quotations, ChatGPT, said this is what it has to be, this is what it has to be. And we kind of from time to time see deals that die that shouldn't die because the misinformation the clients are getting through the AI programs that they believe is correct.
Yeah, that's certainly a concern, because lots of what service and value we provide to transactions, our experience in doing, hundreds, if not thousands of these types of deals. AI certainly doesn't have that, right? That knowledge isn't necessarily in the public domain. It's very regional. It's very specific to the market that we operate in and specific to the circumstances. And that's something AI at the current point is unable to bring to the table.
Well, one thing that I would suspect as well is a good lawyer is on the front lines of seeing challenges within their industry. If you're on the real estate side of things and you're producing leases, I feel like are always constantly being changed in a good way and being updated because of real world circumstances that are happening. And as an example, the words force majeure took on new meaning during the pandemic and probably have taken on new meaning since from a legal perspective. How would AI be able to predict that information would need to get updated versus a lawyer? I couldn't see an AI program being able to do that unless that information was fed to it. The value of a lawyer, I think, is always going to be there because of that reason alone. Am I wrong in thinking that?
I would agree. AI, I think, relies greatly on how, the prompts are drafted, on the expectations of the user and how they're communicated to the AI program, at least currently. And, with a lot of clients, especially small business owners who maybe do a lease or put together an offer infrequently, right? They don't necessarily know what to prompt the AI with. I think AI can be a great tool for lawyers if they're experienced in using it and keep a sharp eye on the product that it spits out. But I think it's hazardous for either clients or maybe lawyers who are inexperienced in this area start using and trusting AI. Trust, I think, is a very important part because as with any tool, even with assistants in our firm, we always have to review the work, make sure it meets our standards before sending it out to either the other side or clients, make sure it serves the necessary purpose. And if you blindly use AI, there's no guarantee of that, right?
It's funny you say like newer lawyers, because I'm interested to see how the next generation of lawyers entering the industry, how much they will rely on it. And hopefully they don't rely on it in a negative capacity to do work that they should be doing, because I do believe like you're going to get incorrect information coming out of it.
I agree, but I am hopeful. I think, the current generation of university students, high school students, I think we've all heard that they make often and frequent use of AI in their day-to-day lives. That's certainly different than when I was being educated, when I went through law school. And so they'll be exposed to a great extent to AI and hopefully bring with that real world experience in using it in the proper way, right? Because at the end of the day, AI is a tool just like any other. We certainly have other tools and software programs that assist us in our practice. If used properly, I do think it can give great value to clients. And it's an inevitable part of the world at this point where if you don't make good use of it, you could be left behind.
Well, it's funny. I attended a conference that was put on by Ernst & Young in California a couple of years ago. And one of the major parts of this conference was how AI will impact the business community. And one of the biggest takeaways I had from the conference is somebody said, AI is not going to take your job, but it will take your job if you don't understand AI. Mm-hmm. And the premise, I think, was like, you're going to have to incorporate this into the business world moving forward. And if you ignore it, it's going to be a problem for those who do. Now, I do believe that I think through some industries that maybe involve heavier administration work and all of that stuff, that this AI could have impact dramatically on that type of job, because you can potentially do things for faster and cheaper, and maybe you don't have to have as many administrators because of that with regards to it. But I do think for those that do ignore AI and don't realize what the powers it can do in a positive way, it will be problematic for them. I worry, looking at the next generation, are they going to become stupider because there's more tools to do your job for you now? And by that, I mean, I see people, I'm not going to say in our office, but I've seen people that copy and paste an email into ChatGPT, tell it how they want it to respond, and the response is provided for you, meaning you don't have to use your brain. So I wonder how that next generation, how much they use AI and how much stupider potentially they become because they're not forced to. Like, my kids are 8 and 10, soon to be 9 and 11. And I'm pretty confident when I was my oldest age in elementary school, he's going to grade 6, that I learned how to handwrite by now. Mm-hmm. And it feels like they don't know how to handwrite yet because they work on an iPad at school.
That's certainly a concern, right? Because, as the focus to different sets of skills change with, development of AI and tools, it always becomes a question of, without it, what can you still do?
Yeah.
Can you still do your job without it? Right? That basic competency. I think that's a good question. And I think it's important that, especially in our profession as lawyers, where there's so much trust, so much money flowing through our trust accounts, where every mistake could be costing hundreds, if not millions of dollars, that basic competency and principled approach to the practice of law has to be maintained, right? That way clients can trust us that we're not just delegating all of their risk and work onto a software program, but that they have the benefit of our experience in the profession, in the market, knowing how to get a deal done, so to speak.
So, Jerry, I guess as a final question, and I'm just asking for a friend, do you see anything on your side that would extinct commercial brokers via AI in the coming years from what you guys are seeing on the law side?
I don't think so. I think there's a great value to brokers in getting a deal done that software programs, even lawyers, simply can't replace, right? I do think there are other roles that AI is definitely coming for. I think in the future, underwriting, I think they'll be using AI to much greater extent. I think appraisals, AI is coming for that. And I think insurance advisors, they may have trouble with AI. But I think broker rules are still going to be very important because when everyone's doing a deal, especially when there's millions of dollars on the table, there's a personal element to negotiating the business aspects of it and in reaching a compromise on terms where I think AI is simply unable to do, right? There's a human touch to that.
That's the exact answer I was looking for, Jerry. And this is why commercial brokers and commercial lawyers are going to survive the technology world. Jerry, thank you once again for taking the time for joining us. And we really appreciate your insight because obviously, like I said, there is that negative connotation that kind of gets out there. And I feel like, at least on our side of the table, that it's been more negatively impacting than positively impacting because people are using it and getting misinformation at this stage and not being able to decipher what's correct and what's wrong, and deals potentially going awry because of it. But before we let you go, Jerry, we got a 6-pack of lighthearted questions we ask all of our guests to find out a little bit more of you outside of the office. Do you have a few more minutes for us?
Let's do it.
Awesome. So, Jerry, unfortunately, you found yourself on death row. You've done something horribly wrong in life. But before it's all said and done, you're allowed one more meal. What meal are you having?
Oh, that's an easy one. Get a big 24-ounce tomahawk steak, all the fixings, nice ball of red, and I'm on my way, Cory.
Do you have any particular restaurant that's going to prepare this 24-ounce T-bone for you?
Oh, Highs has always been a favorite. Can't go wrong.
Choice. Great choice. If I were to open up your phone, what type of music is Jerry listening to right now?
All the pop hits. Anything that pops up. Fortunately, I don't distinguish a lot. I put the radio on in the car and I'm cruising.
Yeah. Okay. Fair answer. A book recommendation for our listeners can be about anything.
Book recommendation. I'll have to admit, it's been a while since I sat down with a good book.
Yeah.
It's been a while. In our profession, there's so much reading during the day. I feel, looking at books has become a bit of a chore, so to speak.
How about an Audible? Is there a good Audible maybe you've listened to on the road that you'd recommend?
Good Audible. So I have been getting into audiobooks more. So especially when driving, you put an audiobook and relax. I actually had an audiobook for the whole Lord of the Rings series just playing. I've been at it for a couple months now because it's so long. I don't go long stretches with it. It's actually quite nice.
Good call. Favorite vacation spot when you find the time?
Oh, now that's a tough one. I actually quite like road trips. I like sticking a bit closer to home. Soyuz is always a favorite. I go there at least once a year, sometimes more. On the way, you get all the fruit, and you got the warm weather, you got a nice lake. It's great.
Great call. Something that you've bought for $1,500 or less that's had a positive impact on your life.
I would have to say, it's actually going to be really cheap, but I have these very nice monitor arms that I've bought from a company that makes these ergonomic products. It made my life so easier at the office. It clears up the desk, gets them nice and ergonomic, so my neck isn't hurting at the end of every day. These have been actually very helpful.
You find when you get people on who sit a lot of times it is something to do with their chair. Potentially it's something to do with a standing desk. These little things go a long way. And I will agree with you on that. I got a phone charger that allows me to charge my earpods and my phone at the same time, which just changed my life. And it was probably $100, but it's the best thing I've ever got. Jerry, has a final question here. You're sitting in a Soyuz. The sun is going down. You're finishing your steak. You've had an amazing bottle of red, and someone sticks a karaoke mic in your face. What song are you singing, Jerry?
Ooh. Hotel California.
Oh, great way to end it. There you have it, folks. Jerry, how can our listeners find out more about your practice, Redpoint Law, and all that stuff?
Head to our website, redpointlaw.ca. Give me a call. I'm happy to have a chat with any legal problem, any potential transaction. Always happy to meet someone new.
Amazing. Jerry, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We really appreciate it. And we'll let you get on with your day.
Thank you for having me, Cory. Take care.
Thanks so much, Jerry. Take care. Bye-bye. There you have it, folks. Our interview today with Jerry Shi from Redpoint Law. I loved having Jerry on today to get his insight and what he sees happening in the law industry with regards to AI. And we banter back and forth on some good stories there. I felt that a lot of it was in a negative connotation with regards to AI, but that is something I think that will be incorporated, hopefully in a more positive light moving forward. But as of right now, with it still being relatively new to the world, it feels like a lot of people are using it and unfortunately probably getting misinformation when it comes to transactions. And we have seen some deals that unfortunately have not got over the finish line because the clients were relying on AI as their lawyer in some capacity and just not getting the correct information. So hopefully it's something that we can change the connotation of moving forward, and a lot more AI will be utilized in a more positive way when it comes to the transaction side of commercial real estate. Thanks for listening, guys. We have another great episode next week. Take care.
Subscribe today.